Hi, my name is Shalon, and I'm here to help you find your next favorite book and your next favorite author. And I'm here today with Charmaine Everly, who is a storyteller that crafts love stories that center complex Black women. Her debut novel, Right Pieces, Wrong Man, was recently released, and it focuses on a woman who has to decide if her boyfriend, who looks good on paper, is actually the right man for her or if she's settling. So I'm so excited to chat with you today about your book, but then also your story.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yay! So I would love to know what first sparked your love for storytelling.
Well, first, I have a love for reading,
Mm.
and that goes back to childhood. I can date it. I was under six, I was put on punishment. I was not able to go outside, and I wasn't able to watch TV. And that is what birthed my love of reading. And so I've been a long time reader. And I used to blog back in the day before the word influencer was a thing.
Mhm.
Um, but I never viewed myself as a writer. And uh, so I started writing because I was on a leave of absence, a sort of mandated leave of absence. My mom transitioned to heaven unexpectedly due to pancreatic cancer
Mm.
2 years ago. And to say that we're close is an understatement.
Mhm.
And I had never dealt with cancer. I was blessed and have been blessed where no one exceptionally close to me had transitioned to heaven. Um, and it was unexpected because most of the women in my mom's family live into their 90s.
Mm. Mhm.
So as we approached her 1 year anniversary of transitioning to heaven, I became depressed and I was high functioning depression. And so during that time that I was off, I didn't want to just sit and cry. And just it wasn't even a plan like, oh, I'm going to write a book. I grabbed my laptop and started this story. And it's a love story. It feels good, has a happy ending, but it also gave me structure during a time where I was really flailing.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how this journey began. I'm so excited.
I'm definitely sorry for your loss, but I'm glad there was an opportunity for you to channel your energy into something that brings you joy, and definitely being able to share that with others. If you're thinking about you as a reader, what sorts of books were you drawn to, and how does that influence the types of stories that you create now?
I remember when Black fiction, when urban fiction first became a genre that was accessible. I
Mm.
remember those early days of the writers, because before that, as far as romance, there was Harlequin, right?
Mhm.
And none of the people looked like us. Um, and so I just devoured it. I mean, any kind, right? Because it was Black. And it kind of reminds me of TV when it was like, this may not be my favorite show, but it's all we got
Mm.
on
Mhm.
Thursday nights, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, but also those early authors were so good. And then when we started to have more choices in our genre, beyond coming of age and different things, I found myself drawn to contemporary romance because I felt that it looked the most like my real life.
Mm.
There were people who had everyday jobs, who were navigating their love life, balancing. I love the escapism of like the street literature and the urban fiction, but that's not a life that I personally have lived or even adjacent to. So it's an escape, and I devour that as well. So that kind of influence, I think, what I like to write
Mhm.
is it reflects the world that I live in and I aspire to live in.
Mhm. What authors come to mind for you as like authors that you really loved then or like continue to love now that feel almost like influences to your work?
Yeah, I remember loving, and still, like you said, Eric
Mhm.
Jerome Dickey,
Mhm.
um, Brenda Jackson. Oh my goodness. Um,
Mhm.
let's see, Zane, when she came out, that shook the table, right? Terry
Yes.
McMillan, of course, Sister Soldier,
Mhm.
Omar Tyree, Michael Baisden. Um, those are some of the ones I remember from back in the day, and I have a lot of those hardcovers that I've kept for years
Mhm.
because again, those were pioneers in the industry. Um, Also, Beverly Jenkins, when it comes to historical Black fiction, I've actually learned a lot from her writing. I
Mhm.
didn't know about Black Wall Street until I read one of her books years ago.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I love Niobe Bryant, Christina C. Jones. Those are some of my more recent. Nina High is an author that you had on, and I recently discovered her series about, I think it's Teachers of Hardwood High,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
love her. So there are some really recent ones. Farah Rashan, Kennedy Ryan, love them. Tia Williams. So some of the like the ones that are really showing a lot of commercial success in
Mhm.
the Black contemporary romance space, which is really helpful because as an indie author, that this journey is beautiful and I wouldn't have it any other way. But for people where their aspiration is to do it full time, it is necessary to see that, our stories, equate to commercial success. So those are
Mhm.
some of my favorites.
Yeah, I love all the folks that you mentioned. We probably could spend a lot of time talking about our favorite books from each of them. But it definitely sounds like, as far as like the contemporary romance influences that you mentioned, like definitely a range from like the sweet, softer love to the ones that are like more emotional, where you're like, I might need to just stare at the wall when I finish this story. So definitely having a wide spectrum of influences, I think definitely shows up in Right Pieces, Wrong Man, just because, just like thinking about Angie's story, like there's different elements of it where it could just be about her growth from beginning to end, but then also the romances that are a part of her story as well. I would love to know what inspired you as you were um, not thinking you were going to write a book, and then you you wrote a book. What inspired that story?
Yeah, I think it's a reflection of a life that I've lived, and also the women around me that are hugely successful professionally. Like I have some very boss women in my life, my friend circle, and most, not all, are either still single, have never been married, or, um, you know, divorced or in long term relationships. And so, struggling to find, is it he's attractive, he's successful, um, he loves me and treats me right. And really, it feels very basic. Like that's
Mhm.
not like we're asking for this long laundry list of things, right? And we're not even talking checklist of physical attributes and all of these things. It feels basic, but it's hard. It's hard, and then you reach an age where you're at a crossroads of, is this life attainable? Is it within reach? Is it something, or do I need to learn to be happy differently?
Mhm.
Is this okay? And my parents have been married or were married for nearly 45 years when my mom transitioned to heaven. So there are aspects of my life that shows up, even though like Angie's not me and it's not based on me. I wrote what I know.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I enjoy it. And I also enjoy the part that is so not me. I enjoyed writing the shopping and the fashion and the, unlimited budget. So
Yes, yeah, because Angie, since she's very successful dermatologist, her family is also successful as well. That is not something she's lacking in. She's like, if I want it, I can have it.
that's
And I
right.
can also give it to my friends too. So
That's
being
right.
very generous. One thing I think that's really interesting about the story that you mentioned is like really thinking about very successful Black women and just like the notion of like, can Black women have it all? And like, do we see representation of that happening? Like you mentioned about the influx of Black literature that happened and being able to see representation in the literary space. But then do we actually see that in reality? Like, is that actually happening? Like, are we seeing folks have their happily ever afters? And that is definitely brought up in the story because Angie has to make some decisions. And we'll try to keep it as spoiler free as possible because you have to read the book to know all of the things. But she's with Keith and he's successful. He looks good on paper. He's attractive. It's like, okay, this should be working, but she's noticing the lack there. What was your inspiration for having this story have multiple perspectives? Because it could have just been Angie and what she's
Hmm.
thinking the entire time, but we hear from Angie, we hear from Keith, and then Rashad, someone she stumbles upon. So I would love to know just your thought of like being able to like peek into each of those characters' minds.
Yeah, I don't remember the first author whose story I read that way.
Mm.
And I believe that I didn't like it. I feel like if I can think back to my memory, I was like, what are they doing? Who am I keeping straight? Which character am I on? And I was turning back because I just was so not used to the multi point of view
Mm-hmm.
style of writing. And then as the years progress, it's kind of become my preference,
Mm.
with the exception of there are certain characters I don't want to hear from. I don't want to read your story. I don't want to read Keisha's story, right? Like,
Oh, we hear from some people we don't want to hear from in this
that's
way.
right.
So.
That's right. So I think again, I wrote what I enjoy the most,
Mm-hmm.
and then I've said many times I was a professional dater. I have dated the gamut of successful check boxes and just not quite right, and even people questioning like, why can't you make it right, or the common denominator is you. People who know me well know that it wasn't me,
Mm-hmm.
because most of those people are still single or unmarried,
Mm-hmm.
by choice, right? And so that's a life that I know well. And like I said, even though it's not me, but there are feelings that I've experienced or things that I've seen my friends go through, even those that are happily married now, it didn't happen until their 30s, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't something where like, oh, I'm with my high school sweetheart. And so navigating the complexities of modern dating, it's just not easy. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, the multi point of view really came because that's what I enjoy. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is where the story needs to go, but it needs to be from this person's perspective. And this, we need to know this is happening behind the scenes. And so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was definitely a really interesting choice because there's sometimes where me as a reader, I know things Angie doesn't know. So I'm like yelling at her. I'm like, please go pay attention. Like, but she obviously does not know because I was in somebody else's point of view. So I definitely appreciate that because then we get a little context on like, how is she going to make her choices based on the limited information she has because she can only go by what she's seen or what people have said to her.
Correct.
Mhm. So part of Angie's growth story and like the romance is like really about like her growth and like realizing how like she's presenting herself. And there's also this running theme of her giving a lot of herself and not really realizing that it should be reciprocal. There should be balance, and that's happening in her professional life as well as in her personal life. And I would love to know why you decided to showcase it in that way, in addition to like the like a professional life, in addition to what's happening in her personal and romantic life.
It's a lived experience. And I remember a few years ago when the term soft girl era soft girl life
Mhm.
became popular. And initially, I didn't know what it meant. I'm an elder millennial. And then I also, when I learned the term or when I first saw it, I thought it was, I rejected it because the idea of aspiring to be taken care of
Mm.
was something that I had not experienced. I had not aspired for that. I had aspired to be successful, to be accomplished, to be independent, to bring my own and have my own.
Mhm.
And the more that I saw that becoming a trend and thinking about it, and then just life be lifing, I remember thinking, why is it that that is not something that we see in our community,
Mhm.
right? Like there are a lot of white women who are accomplished, have multi degrees, and don't use them because they get married, they decide to prioritize their family life, or they decide to, and they have the luxury of becoming entrepreneurs with the startup money. There's just a difference. And then even when I took my leave of absence from work, the reactions from to this day, white people tell me, "Oh, I took a year off. I took
Mhm.
6 months off."
Mhm.
And I remember being upset, sad, wondering if I was disappointing my mom by not being strong enough to work through that depression. And so it was really important to me to showcase someone who is smart and capable, but like wondering why they are taking it all on, right? Or having
Mhm.
friends, family, like say, like you can let your guard down. And also, even the way that she was showing up in her relationship with Keith, there were times where it was like he wasn't being supportive in a way that felt competitive, right?
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
like, why are you doing all that? Like, hopefully, when we get married, you can take a seat. Um, and so, again, the question of can you have it all, right? What has to give was very much, and I think, writing the story the way that I did, I think that that resonates with a lot of women
Mhm.
who really struggle to find that balance and to find supportive circle. And it could be your friends who are questioning that, right? Like who aren't supportive of your growth or your accomplishments. It can be your partner, it can be your family. And it was really important for me to showcase the happy ending in the way that Angie found it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I definitely agree that that story is very relatable because um, everyone's lives are always in flux. Like, even if things are going well professionally, it may not be going ideally. Like, you may
Mhm.
be, like you said, feel pressured to like push through and like keep going. And I think, especially thinking about Black women, like you mentioned, we don't often have the luxury of rest or just like, wait, let me take a pause and see if the path that I'm going down is the one that I want to. And in Angie's story, things come to a head. That's the way that I'll put it. As she's thinking about her relationship with Keith. And I would just love to know, what was your thought process in crafting Keith as a character compared to Rashad as a character, and trying to help with that balance for Angie?
Yeah, I wanted readers to have clarity around this isn't the right fit,
Mm.
but also with Keith, but he's not all bad,
Mhm.
which is why I think a lot of women struggle with, you know, there are some pieces here, right? Like, and Angie didn't even know all the wrong pieces, right?
Mhm.
But I think there are women that, and I've been there where it's like, well, these are the positive attributes. And something that I said to myself and to friends is like the person that you're dating or that you're trying to make it work with may not be an a hole, right? Like they could be a decent person, they may not be a
Mhm.
horrible human. Doesn't mean they're a good partner. Doesn't mean they're a good partner for you. Doesn't mean they're meant for your happy ending. And so that's what I tried to write with Keith, because even Keith, um, and like you said, I don't want to spoil too much, but like as a family person, right?
Mhm.
That was important to him, that showcased. And so it's like, oh, this person isn't all bad. There's some good here. And then with Rashad, I think showing, not judging a book by its cover, not being accomplished and thinking about money match first,
Mhm.
and being a teammate and working together and showing support, that like you can have support without competition. You can have like a true cheerleader and cheerleaders in your life. That was important to show in both of those characters.
Mhm. Yes, because then I think a lot of what happens with Angie is she realizes that there could be more in the relationship as opposed to just going with like, okay, this looks like a pretty package for the most part. Maybe some of the wrapping is ripped at the corner, but I can figure I can make it work. I can make it work, but there's one that is out there that you don't have to do those things to. The things that are actually important to you. In the book, in addition to like her growth and then the romance, there's quite a few messy moments in this book that I was not expecting. Just reading the description, and I very much enjoyed it. There are secrets that get revealed and like forces Angie to make some choices. A lot of the characters to make some choices. And I would love to know what your approach was to balancing like Angie's personal journey with those unexpected twists and revelations.
One, I wanted the readers to be entertained.
Hmm.
I wanted them to question what was going to happen. Um, so I think that was my main goal in terms of how I wrote it. Um, and then ultimately to be rooting for a happy ending, right? Like in
Hmm.
the genre of romance, we know, we assume that there will be a happy ending.
Hmm.
I've read some where, you know, the main one of the main characters like die at the end or something. And they're like, oh, but we loved once. And I'm like, no,
No,
that
that
is
is
not what I
literary fiction. Then,
want.
yeah.
So you consume, but how do you get there and what does that look like? I wanted it to stay interesting.
Hmm.
And then to have some moments of conflict. Um, and it was also really important to me to show like strong Black sisterhood, friends through friendship. Throughout the
Mm-hmm.
series, that is a theme. And that was important to me because there's often a lot of talk, and I've grown up, again, like I said, I'm an elder millennial, so I've grown up with this idea that like Black women are competitive, or there's a crab in a barrel, and all of these phrases that support ideas that Black women struggle to find success together, even if it's at different rates and different paces. And so that's a real theme that I intentionally wrote, and that's a lived experience for me.
Hmm.
So I mean, I'm blessed to have some sisters that support, pray, show up, are consistent. They're like, you know, just just really solid. And so that's also another like happy ending theme that I was important for me to show.
Yeah, I really love the friendship that develops between Angie and it's Desiree, right?
Mhm.
Um, and how Desiree shows up for her in ways she isn't expecting. Same thing for Angie with Desiree, especially how they meet and then their lived experiences and their backgrounds. And I love that that is a theme. And then you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe because there were some things with Desiree and someone who we won't name that was floating around in the background there. So, and I believe we'll get more of Desiree's story. Is that right?
That is, and it book two, Desiree's story is actually my favorite of the series.
Okay.
Um, and so, and I love Right Pieces Romance because it's my first. It'll always hold like such a
Hmm.
special place in my heart. But the ride that I take the readers on in Desiree's story, I think is just really good.
Hmm.
Um, Not better or worse, just good.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you for that. And I'm excited. I'm just excited that people are reading that when people who read it, who are not just reading it to support you, because sometimes there's just that implicit bias, right? Where I know this person and I'm reading something they put out, and so I like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to be supportive. But when people who I don't know read it and leave reviews or I see ratings, I am like, wow. Because when I finished it, again, not someone who has always written and was always writing short stories and entering contests and things like that. I was like, I think it's good. How do I know if it's good? Right. And so my confidence built as I prepared to release it because it was about a year since I actually finished it, just doing all the other things to get ready.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's just really, it's something I couldn't have planned for. The feelings that I have receiving feedback and knowing that it's entertaining people, and it's my favorite pastime. I love to read, so
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Can you provide any spoiler-free context on what we can expect from Desiree's story?
yeah. So Desiree is an adult orphan, so that's revealed, and so the themes of found family are even stronger in her story,
Mm,
and that becomes extremely complex. um, Learning the backstory of how that came to be and how she's navigating. There's also themes of like mental health and the importance of having therapy as needed that show up. And also something where rags to riches, where we see her, kind of career growth in book one and Right Pieces
mhm,
from a Man. And then now she's in a different space. She's in a different space professionally and economically, and having the confidence to own that. Like, it's not a gift, you earned it, you're deserving of that. And how do you kind of accept that and settle into that when so long has been striving and aspiring, right?
mm,
And then now
mhm,
you're here, and how do you enjoy that? Which again, I think is something that professional or successful, accomplished Black women, Black people somewhat struggle with, right? I know I have. So
mhm. Yeah, definitely. Oh, that sounds really good. I'm definitely excited to see the journey Desiree goes on and if somebody pops up in that in that journey as well.
so good.
Because that was also a little bit messy. So I'm interested to see how that is resolved in that story. And when you initially you were writing and editing and developing Right Pieces, Wrong Man, did you initially think it was going to be a series, or did it grow into becoming a series based on the stories you wanted to tell?
When I introduced Desiree, I knew that it was going to be a series.
Mm,
I was
mhm,
thinking like, how? I think it's interesting that it's not family members,
mm,
right?
mhm,
Which is a common thing for series, and they're not long time friends.
mhm,
Finding adult friendships for Black women is sometimes difficult because we all have like busy lives. We all
mhm,
have things. We all have obligations, and so sometimes that can be a challenge. And so I think that's a unique perspective. I shouldn't say unique, books reflect life, so it happens, but it's not as common as some of the other series. And my favorite to read are full stories that start and finish in a book, but there's interconnected. That is my favorite.
Yes. Mhm.
And I think, again, going back to Eric Jerome Dickey, I remember the first time, I think it was Milk and My Coffee and maybe Cheaters,
Mhm.
where characters were like in a store and they ran into characters from a
Yes.
previous book. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love them, right? Like, I'm so
Mhm.
happy to see them. And I just remember as that became somewhat of a more popular style of writing, just again, that's what I enjoy the most. And where, because you could pick it up and end. It's kind of like sitcoms, right? Like the whole story
Mhm.
ends in the episode. I don't have to wait until the next one with dramas where the story continues. And I enjoy that too. But yeah, I like to be able to like, oh, that was a feel good. It started, it finished, the whole story arc ended, and next week we'll see what happens with the characters, right? And
Mhm.
so I struggled the most with book three. I introduced the character in book one, um, but her story, I work in healthcare in my real life, or I shouldn't say real life, my day life. Um, so having to do research and things, books one and two were easy.
Mm. Mhm.
I'm from New Jersey. It's set in New Jersey, right?
Mhm.
Book three, the characters lead lives that are very different from mine as far as professionally. So it
Mhm.
took me a lot to be like, is this real? Is this realistic? Some of the things that I wrote about in book three were very different from. So I spent a lot of time doing research to make sure that it reflected and it wasn't insulting or unbelievable because
Mhm.
that bothers me. Like when I read books where you were a nurse and now you switch to being an OBGYN, it's like, oh well, where did med school come in?
Yeah,
Like
you can't just change one coat for another. You have to
right,
do something.
right. So when I read things that are very unrealistic from whatever the profession is,
Mhm.
that's one of my pet peeves when I read. So I wanted to make sure that, and I hope I did. I mean, I don't even have anyone that's a creative, like in the main character in book three, to even ask. But I hope, and even in book two, right? Like there are some characters where they are involved in sports professionally.
Mm.
So, and
Mhm.
that's I'm 5'3". I love sports. I'm a sports fanatic, but that's not what I do.
Yes. Exactly. Can you share who's centered in book 3?
Yeah, it's Ryan. And she
Okay.
doesn't appear until like near the end of book one and in the
Mm,
epilogue. She's
got you.
Angie's college friend.
Got it. Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm interested to see where the journey goes. And what do you want readers to feel after reading Right Pieces, Wrong Man, or just the series once it's fully out there?
I want them to feel a sense of contentment and I want their souls to smile.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to be feel good and memorable. And I want people to reflect that if it ever comes up in like they're recommended, right, or they see it, or someone that's like, oh, that was so good, right? Like, you know how even if you haven't read a book for a long time, you're like, I remember
Mm-hmm.
that was good. Like I felt that it made my soul fulfilled and content and not where. And I can't even remember the last time this happened to me, but it has happened where I finished a book and been like, ugh, like you just feel like not like it was a waste of time, but just I didn't get that full, happy, content feeling. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that that is the feeling. And then I want readers to want more from me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I am so excited and so grateful to have uncovered this gift. It is a journey that I feel because of how it started that my mom and I are still on together. And so feeling as
Mm-hmm.
if I'm still doing something with her is just so special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. And definitely wanting to leave folks feeling good, definitely entertained. We can add that to as well, going along the journey with the characters. And how has the indie author journey been? Because writing the books and trying to figure out like what character is going to do is like a very creative process, but there's a lot of technical things that have to happen to like actually get the book out there. So I would love to know how that's been, especially since you're within your debut year as far as the book being released.
Yeah, it's been so good. I did initially pursue like deals, and there were a
Mm,
couple of smaller imprints that I had an opportunity to work with. And it just wasn't, I mean, just timing opportunity, things didn't align. And so I
mhm,
remember, thinking and making the decision that I was going to do it independently. I didn't question that, but I remember saying, okay, let me uh, make a decision and really, take this seriously. And so that's why it took about a year from the time that it was finished to
mm,
release it,
mhm,
because I really wanted to be thoughtful about um, what people identified me with. When I started reading my favorite Black authors, social media obviously was not in existence. And even when it became in existence and I would read some of my favorites, they had like two Instagram posts and it wasn't their face, right?
right.
And so I remember not having opportunity to get to know the writers behind these stories. And I can understand why, because I think the mystery of it allowed your imagination to run wild a bit,
Mhm,
right? So I think that there is beauty in that, but I wanted to be able to connect with people. I wanted people to understand sort of who Charmaine Everly is a bit. And so I was really thoughtful and intentional about my release. I had a full celebration, which I'm not a birthday person. So having it released on my birthday and having a party and, investing in it that way was just such a beautiful, and my mom transitioned to heaven in May as well.
mm,
So, all of that celebrating. So, choosing the fonts, the color, the trim, the formatting, I have taken it as such a beautiful learning experience that helps me to balance my 9 to 5 life that is very intense and target driven and, meetings and agendas and trackers, and
mhm,
the progress in a creative space is satisfying and fulfilling very differently. And that juxtaposition has been a real healing experience for me.
mm.
So I have been enjoying it. I did my first festival this past weekend, and
Yay.
I imagine it's like
Congratulations.
a performer having a high. I was like, when's the next one? Where am I going next? I loved it. And I wish that like I could circle back and be like, have you read it? Let's talk. Um,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
That's amazing. I'm glad that it's been a very fulfilling journey so far, and you're feeling a lot of joy around it. And I hope that definitely continues since now we're expecting two more books for Desiree and Ryan, and need to see what their journeys are like. And I don't know if you've thought about this yet, but are there any genres or tropes that you would love to explore in future work that you haven't had a chance to with the stories that you've created so far?
There are, I think a little bit of suspense romance
Mm, mhm.
would be fun for me to try. And I've been playing around with some ideas. I have enjoyed those. There's an author, I haven't read any of her books in a while, but kind of the way that I read is like I'll think about something that I haven't read in a while, Um, like I'll be like, oh, I need a good like street lit. Like I
Mhm.
need somebody to come in with a pillowcase full of cash and like 5 guns that they, like I
Yeah.
need that, right? And so then I'll go and explore
Mhm.
that genre and start reading. And then and sometimes it'll be like, oh, there's a favorite author that I remember, and she since has released, or he has since released new works.
Mhm.
B.M. Harden, I think is her name, or
Mhm.
Harding. And I remember when I first started reading her books, I was like I went through her whole catalog so quickly because there was always this like, uh, like, like
Yes, the
very,
shock factor. Yeah.
yes, yes. And so, I don't think that I can quite go there. Um, but I again, that's something that I don't read all the time. But when I do, right, she's
Mhm.
one, and then of course, then Kindle will recommend others in that, and so I'll go down that rabbit
Mhm.
hole for a little bit. And so I think that something adjacent to that would be fun to write. And so I am writing my next series, which I hope um, comes out next year. Now that I am back working full time, it is harder to finish, and then also the interruptions of like I've stopped, right, and then I'm going back
Mm.
and like where was
Mhm.
I, even though I kind of plan out the whole series. And it's a little different.
Mhm.
So yeah, I see this as being something that will always be a part of me, whether I'm like releasing them online or writing them and just putting them on my shelf and having them printed. It's just it it's a journey like no other, and I feel very honored for the opportunity to entertain people.
Mhm.
Like it really is for people to read something that you created, that you thought, that you wrote, that you put out into the world, and that people enjoy, and you bring them joy and entertainment and laughter. That is not, I mean, again, not from someone who studied creative writing or, things like that. So I guess I was unprepared for the level of gratitude that I would feel.
Mhm. That's amazing. As you're thinking about just the your approach to storytelling and crafting these stories, if you overheard a reader raving about your work, they were talking to somebody else and say, "You need to read this one." What 3 words would you want to hear them say?
What a excellent question. Um, 3 words: love, page turner, hyphen. So
Yes.
that's one
Yep.
word.
Right. I'll allow it.
um, and anticipation.
Okay. Okay, I like those. And then we'll be anticipating Desiree's story. Do you have a release date for her story?
I do. So Desiree story will be out in August. I think August 11th, I want to say.
Okay.
And then Ryan's story will be out in September.
Okay. Okay. So we have a summer, end of summer, beginning of fall time period to be able to dive into the wrong series. And I would love to know, what is the best way for readers to support you?
Leaving a review,
Mhm.
rating and review. And I've done that. I am a Kindle girly. Have been. Fun fact about me is I bought the very first edition of Kindle the week that the very first Kindle came out. They were
Oh,
so
wow.
expensive. I had to save my little grad school coins. And so I know about Goodreads and it's connected, but I had never logged on. I never knew that it like had every book that I ever read through Kindle on there. And so there's some where I've reread them multiple times and it's marked as like currently reading and all these things. I'm like, no, 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 fix it. Um, so I have read books, I have rated them, I have left reviews, but I think one, it's encouraging and it's just personally really helpful to read what people think. And I even have gotten critical feedback that was really helpful. It wasn't, just tearing you down negative. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, I can see that. So leaving an honest review and rating the book is something that I would like to ask anyone who reads.
Mhm.
And follow me. Instagram is the platform that I am the most active on. I'm
Mhm.
so proud of how consistent I've been. I haven't quite figured out the tick and the talk. I'm on, but like
Yep.
we're still getting me acclimated.
Mhm.
So yeah, follow me at Charmaine.Everly, but it's Charmaine Everly across all platforms.
Gotcha. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. And folks can purchase a copy of Right Pieces, Wrong Man and learn more about the Wrong series and any other books that you'll be releasing at your website, charmaineeverly.com. And you can also read Right Pieces, Wrong Man if you're enrolled in Kindle Unlimited as well. And then definitely connect with Charmaine on TikTok and Instagram, like she mentioned, so that way you'll know exactly when everything is released and any sort of event she'll be at. So, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Shalon, for having me. And thank you for all you're doing to spotlight Black authors. It's really awesome. I know that you put a lot of time and preparation into it, and I admire that and appreciate it. And I enjoy watching you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I hope you have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.